gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Pietro Franceschini, all the way from Milano.
Namaste. I am very, very happy to be here today, and I'm in such a special occasion, and I'm very honored to have the chance to tell you my story. So today I want to talk to you about the fictional object. So the fictional object is a tool through which I operate within the design world. It's something that I came up about 5 years ago when I started my design practice. The fictional object leaves what I call the space in between. The space that is between what is real and physical and what's fictional and digital. So I would like to start this conversation with one simple question. Can objects be real and fictional at the same time? So this story is made of 3 acts. Act number 1, I'll tell you the most relevant moments of my life that brought me to conceptualize the fictional object. Act number 2, I will point out the 5 rules or characteristics that an object has to have in order to be considered a fictional object. And in act number 3, I'll show you a brief selection of objects. So this is Florence, Italy. It's where I was born, I grew up, and also where I decided when I was young that I wanted to be an architect. So Florence is where the Renaissance was born in the 15th century. So I would say it's where godlike proportions met the human scale. So in Florence, there is this very refined harmony in shapes and volumes that you can really breathe in every single buildings and street of this city. But then from Florence, I very soon moved to Lisbon, where it was my interest for a Portuguese school of architecture that brought me there. I really wanted to see what architects like Álvaro Siza, Aires Mateus, they were doing. And what I found was something very, very different. So I found out these spaces, this volume that were actually not built with materials, but simply with light and shadows. So I started to appreciate that type of design where with only very few gestures, you could be able to say a lot. Then there was one day in my life where I ended up almost by chance in Siwa, in Egypt. I don't know how many of you know this place, but it's incredible oasis, the western oasis of the Egyptian desert. And that place changed my life forever. Siwa is a very ancient place, a magical place, where Alexander the Great was said to stop by. Herodotus talked about Siwa in his books as the miracle of water in the desert. And there you can find a medieval citadel entirely built out of salt. It's incredible. So I stayed there for a year, between there and Cairo. And I wrote a book about the desert. I did my first architectural project built, but most of all, there I learned a different type of narrative that I would have used later on in my projects very much. But then there was a voice in my head that told me, Pietro, what are you doing in the middle of the desert? You wanted to be an architect. So I moved to Paris, where I started collaborating with a local firm, and we were designing buildings like this. Mostly large residential building that they were looking like white trees against the blue sky. But Paris didn't last very long because I really wanted to go to New York. And so I did. And in New York, I developed my interest for infrastructures and what I call non-anthropocentric buildings. Buildings that are not made with the main purpose of hosting humans. So buildings that we can think about them as machines. I'll give you some examples like river dams, data centers, military buildings. So this, for example, is a sunken data center that I imagined outside of Manhattan, which was also an infrastructure, like an underwater tunnel at the same time. What I was really after was trying to, through technology, create that sense of astonishment that usually it's a prerogative of nature. So then I stayed in New York for many years, almost 7 years, designing with international architects like tall, futuristic skyscrapers and towers. Then I got involved in a different way of designing the city and the human interactions, the so-called smart city. So I started using sensors and data to design. So this is all to say that 5 years ago, when I decided to start my furniture practice, I kind of find myself between something very real as the weight of a marble slab and something completely untangible, aerial, in motion, as the smart city. So this is how I came up with the fictional object. It was my way of doing furniture, but mostly it was my attempt to shape the space in between these two opposite entities. So there are 5 characteristics that an object has to have in order that I could consider it a fictional object. Number 1, an object needs to go beyond its function. That means that those objects borrow the grammar from furniture, but they actually exist at the edge of utility. So they're still like chairs, tables, but they're functional, but they're not fully functional. They need to do something else. Number 2, these objects are vessels for stories. That means that this object is a trigger to stories and characters. You can consider it as a prop that can help you enter a different reality. So this is why from day 1, I started collaborating with visual artists, and there's always a digital work that goes along with the physical. Number 3, it's the other way around. So it's not always the object that becomes imaginary, but sometimes is the fiction first, and then the fiction finds its own material into the real way. So this is exactly what we were mentioning before, like if many things doesn't exist in the digital world, like ergonomics, gravity, when there's this material encounter, like something different happens. Number 4, the real essence of these objects is ambiguity. With this, I mean that fictional objects don't rely on, they rely much more on friction and tension rather than balance and than balance. So they found their core in the tension between different opposites, and these opposites are real and fictional, playful and gravitas, digital and physical. So when you will see the object, you don't have to think about the object as this is physical or this is digital. I want you to think about the objects in between the two of them. Number 5 and last, each object is a world-building fragment. What that means? That means that each object is a clue to a much larger universe. And I don't want the object to be too much self-explanatory, but they need to evoke. So now I'm going to show you a short selection of this object. Olympus is the first collection that I designed. It started as a collaboration with this Argentinian visual artist. And there was a very simple question behind these pieces. And that was, what if I should design pieces of furniture for the gods up in the Olympus, but not the old boring gods, but some cool gods. So this question was bearing kind of a deeper question, which was my research of putting together some old and majestic component together with a young and cool one. So the way I'm showing these objects is I'll show you the fictional origin first, then the material encounter, and then the final, which is not the final, but the physical product. So in this case, the material encounter was very diverse. We went through bending and welding metal panels, to there's a whole series of upholstered pieces, and then a whole set of marble stools, sculptural marble stools. This is one of those. It's called Los Tres Deseos, the three wishes. And the idea was starting from simple volumes and subtracting the same cube in order to attain three different shapes. The gold arch, we came in a console and a bench, was taking on the idea of the arch as the archetype of ancient architecture. Gamma was an ancient altar with a contemporary take. Here is in Port Loran, a marble from Morocco. Tomiris was an ancient warrior, which was both at the same time feminine but also very strong. So you have cast brass elements and a very soft wool boucle seat. Cha-cha-cha wanted to evoke three ancient dancers, and they were sculpted from 3 blocks of Nero Marchina marble. Medusa is the famous mythological figure that here finds its way in a very playful stool. Chelone was a nymph that was turned into a turtle from Zeus because she refused to attend his wedding. So the other side, it's the second project I want to show you. It's very different. Here it started as a commission project from El Decor. They wanted to celebrate 10 years. And they asked myself and Benoit Chalan, which is an artist from Paris, to design a digital work, a video to be exhibited. What we thought it was to merge our 2 different languages. So as you can see, like we started from some of my silhouettes, some of the pieces I just showed to you, and we tried to merge them with Benoit language, which was impossible furniture, very shocking color like pink, orange, purple, and we called it The Other Side because we presented a series of 4 rooms that they were hiding another room in the back where something different was happening. And we were trying to test different ideas in each room. Here, for example, we wanted to experiment on the idea of furniture from inflatables. Or like this infinite pieces of furniture that it looked like they were never ending. Instead, they were leading to a different room. And this piece was, as I said before, it's not always the same story, but it was meant to stay. I mean, we're trying to make it and to do an exhibition, but for the moment it stayed digital. And it was sold during the exhibition in Paris as an NFT. So the next project is called Licitra. It's something that it started from something that we kind of talked before. One of my galleries, Filia, was asked me to design a piece to be exhibited in one of Le Corbusier's super iconic building in Marseille, which was the Unité d'Habitation. which is a dream request for an architect. Is this incredible building that Le Corbusier built in the 50s. It was one of the first social housing experiments. Le Corbusier was, it's a kind of reductive, but it was very well known for its simple shapes and volumes and the use of primary colors. So designed Licitra, which is this chair, and the idea was challenging the ability of simplifying and eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary could speak. The chair is made of very simple volumes, straight edges, and then if you zoom in, it finds the materials found definition in this yellow velvet that we were so lucky to have the opportunity of shooting on the top of this incredible building. Then the chair found a second life when the Parisian textile brand Metaphor wanted to celebrate their signature velvet Saint-Germain. So we let Licitra found these different shades of greens, and we did an installation in their showroom in Paris, where you could really appreciate all the contrast between the very straight shape and the softness of the velvet. So the next project, the title is a bit harsh, I know. It's called Objects of Anger. It was mostly like a research project that I did last year. So it all started from my deep fascination for a series of mostly World War II artifacts. It's not about politics, I say it right away. Mostly bunkers. They were part of the so-called Atlantic Wall, which the Nazis built on the coast of France and England. They were for defense purpose, but these objects they held a very unfortunate fate, because now they're completely abandoned, and of course people when they think about those objects, they think about all the atrocity of the war. But what really interests me about those objects were their extreme power in their aesthetics and the melancholy that they were bearing. So I started creating a series of scenarios from these objects. So here's the first, where then a table started to emerge. So it's called automa. It's this multi-tiered surface, and each leg metamorphoses into a tabletop. This is Silo. It was a bunker-inspired chair. Chair Z instead was very austere in its aesthetics. It was made of stainless steel panels and very, very straight upholstery, upholstered volumes. This Untitled, it started from the same suggestion, but here the idea was to create an ambiguous object in its use. So it started as a building, but then it could have been a sculpture. I imagine it as a series of totems. But then when the material encounter, when we got to the material, we started bending and welding stainless steel panels, trying to reach like a monolithic volume that looked almost like cast, like almost like a stainless steel lingot. And then it became a table, a coffee table, which the most interesting thing about it was the proportions that were completely off for a coffee table, which made, my opinion, they made it interesting because it looked more like a sculpture that you just laid on the floor and use it at a coffee table more than a real coffee table. For Automa, the fabrication process was a little more complicated. I really wanted to do it in metal, but the whole welding and the difficulty of the process suggests us to do it to create a wooden structure and then cover it in liquid metal. But it was very helpful for the purpose. There was creating this fluidity between the top and the legs. And this object found its first home in India, in Hyderabad. So this is actually India. This is one of the most fun projects. It's like, I wanted to do a collection in rattan, But then I was like, how I can do something different in rattan? Rattan has always been used, I mean, its real charm is when you waved it. So I was like, why don't we try to treat rattan as if it was licorice? And so there was this reference that came to my mind. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was very popular in Europe and in the US in the 90s. It's from Haribo. It was these licorice wheels. So some shapes started to emerge. And then I partnered with an Indonesian manufacturer to really see what we could get out of this. And we came up with a chair, a coffee table, 2 side tables, and a bench. Then they were then exhibited in Bali for Design Week last August. This is a project that was a bit spoiled by the intro presentation. I want to leave you to the video so you can fully immerse into it, and then I'm going to tell you a couple of things. So here, the idea was simple. Like, I wanted to experiment on the sculptural side of furniture. And the idea of doing a chair that dares you not to sit, which is kind of weird. So it started with the shape of the back, which is like these 2 planets gravitating towards each other's, and from here, the reference of the universe. But it could also be like 2 figures like staring at each other's. I think Material Encounter was pretty striking because we had to select this huge piece of Breccia di Capraia marble. We robot sculpted, and then we refined it by hand. And this was the result, which brought a lot of surprise because the veining was so incredible. It's a limited edition. We're at number 4, and yeah, like before I leave the word to Hassan. I want to leave you with one last question. What do you think, what survives longer, marble or imagination? Thank you very much.